Does the United States have too many laws? I'm Daniel Jennings, and today we're going to answer that question. There are so many laws in the United States that nobody even knows how many exist. There was an attempt several years ago to count them, but apparently they never even finished counting them. Someone has estimated that there could be 300,000 individual laws in the United States. And that's a lot of rules that you and I could be breaking. We may not even know that we're breaking them. To give you an example, with federal law in 1925, there was one volume that contained all of the federal laws. In 2008, it took 50 volumes to contain all of the federal laws. And then perhaps even some supplemental volumes to go along with it after that. Well, obviously there are too many laws when you can't even count and nobody even knows how many there are that exist. And today we want to look at some simple steps and suggestions that any country can take to help reform its law and legal system. The first thing is that when a law is passed, it should be generally based on common sense, meaning that you don't necessarily have to have a law to tell you whether the thing is wrong or right. Your common sense will tell you that it is. And what has happened a lot of times is that some laws are so beyond common sense and so strange, really, that a lot of times people have found themselves breaking laws that nobody would have ever even suspected that what they were doing was illegal. But sure enough, when you looked in the perhaps 300,000 laws that exist in the United States, what they were doing was against the law. Common sense would have never told them that, but nonetheless, it was against the law, and they had to pay the price. Well, another suggestion to make our legal system even more sane, I would say, is that laws should be required to be publicized and the people that they impact informed directly of their existence. In our country, we have a saying that ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law. But the reality is, if you have hundreds of thousands of laws, everyone is going to be ignorant of some law at some point, in some way, and at some time. So it's only fair that when a law impacts someone, the burden should be on the government to reach out to that person and make sure that they know that a law has been passed that affects them in their business and their everyday day-to-day life, or whatever. And every possible step should be taken to make sure that those people are aware that something they may be doing may be against the law. That's only fair to people, to society. Another suggestion is that laws are oftentimes written in too complicated of a way. All laws should be written in such a way that I would suggest a 6th grade reading level. So a law should be written in such a simple way that a 12-year-old should be able to pick it up, read it, and understand perfectly what that law is saying and what is expected from that law. But the opposite is sometimes the case. Today we have laws that are so complicated that we have to have lawyers and judges and so forth, and they have to examine them and try and figure out what the enactors of that law actually meant. But it shouldn't be complicated. The law system should not be complicated. If the law system affects you and me, it should be simple enough for you and me to understand it. We shouldn't have to hire a lawyer and have a judge to understand what is against the law and what is not against the law. Another suggestion is that laws need to be passed with what is called sunset clauses. And what a sunset clause is it's where when a law is passed, it says this law will be in effect until such and such date in the future. And once that date passes, that law is no longer on the books. It's no longer a law. It's no longer able to be legally enforced. And what that will cause is that will cause people to sit back, instead of building up hundreds of thousands of laws like we apparently have, it'll cause them to go back and look at the old laws and make sure they still apply, make sure they're still needed, and if so, they can extend them, give them another sunset clause, but if not, they can just let them fade off of the books. And this needs to be done retroactively for all laws. They need to pass a law stating that all previous laws now have a sunset clause with an established date for when they no longer will be in effect. And that will help us to weed out, many of those laws that were passed for frivolous or just the wrong reason. Because the reality is sometimes laws are passed for the wrong reasons. Sometimes a person may give a lot of money to a politician, and because he or she wants a certain law passed, and the politician is corrupt, and in response they pass a law to give an advantage to that person. So we need to get rid of laws like that, and a sunset clause would help to combat that. Another suggestion is that laws don't need to be long. A law should be no more than 1 page long. Some laws are thousands of pages long. And, that just makes it more complicated for people to be able to know what is in the law. And, if you had to have a law that was more than 1 page, you should just pass several different laws that would all work together. And that way we wouldn't have the situation where the law is, again, filling 50 volumes and who can know it? I mean, who could spend the time studying it? Even lawyers don't know all the laws. So laws need to be short. They need to be very short, no more than 1 page. If we'll do this, I believe that our country will be a better place. And here's a little food for thought on this. Think about all the money that is spent on enforcing the hundreds of thousands of laws that exist, policing the community, taking the people who violate these laws, sometimes in ignorance, to court, and then punishing those people with sometimes prison time or fines or whatever. Think of all the money that is spent enforcing hundreds of thousands of laws, many of which we could easily do without. Think of how that money could be better used. It could be used to hire more teachers. It could be used to help the homeless. It could be used for a variety of reasons. But we're wasting money by enforcing this monster of a legal code that we have created here in the United States. So what we need to do is we need to have serious legal reform here in the United States. All of our laws need to be examined. They need to be given sunset clauses. If they're written in a confusing manner, they need to be rewritten on a 6th grade reading level. And those that we keep, we need to make sure that we are publicizing them so that no one is ignorant of a particular thing that might affect them being against the law. And if we do that, we will have a better society here in our country. It can be done. It needs to be done. And may God help us to get it done. I'm Daniel Jennings, and this is another life lesson.